Hi everyone, my name's John. Welcome back to my channel. Before I jump into a discussion about Jane Austen's novel Persuasion, I wanted to talk a little bit about something I was thinking about as I was reading the book. I think Jane Austen is misunderstood for a number of reasons, and these reasons may be very well trod in certain sections of BookTube. I wouldn't know. I haven't, to be quite honest, watched a lot of Jane Austen discussions, reviews, reading events, because I didn't think that she would really suit me as a reader. So, as I'll talk about in a second, I have a reading history with her. I think many people do. She is breathlessly assigned to 14-year-old high school students with expectations that they will understand what she's doing, which is kind of tantamount to setting them up for failure. One of the reasons why she's easy to misunderstand is because she doesn't feel the need to constantly explain herself. Her contemporary readership, along with today's adults as well, are likely to have a better sense of the social manners on which she's commenting without providing the journalistic explication that younger readers need to fully appreciate her novel. To make matters even worse, her first time readers, and maybe even many adults, think of her as a Victorian, maybe more contemporary with, say, the Bronte sisters, which robs her, albeit unintentionally, of the tremendous amount of literary innovation for which she's responsible. If your first experience with Jane Austen was anything like mine, all of this goes a long way in explaining why you have thousands of befuddled high school students, especially boys, but not only boys, wondering what she's trying to do on the page. And this is my first time reading Jane Austen in quite a spell, and I am nothing short of utterly beguiled and enchanted by her. So, with a little bit of throat clearing, let me now talk about the book. You have this father figure. His name is Sir Walter Elliot. He is a spendthrift baronet who represents the obsolescent, on the way out aristocracy who is forced to lease his family estate for financial reasons because he spends too much money. He is the father to three girls. The eldest is every bit as vain and superficial as her social climber father is, and the youngest is a griping hypochondriac who has already somehow managed to find a husband. And 8 years before the novel opens, his middle daughter, whose name is Anne, and Anne is the novel's protagonist, who was engaged to a man named Frederick Wentworth, but broke it off on the advice of a family mentor, a well-meaning but flawed woman named Lady Russell. So she has broken off this engagement on Lady Russell's recommendation. While Anne is visiting the Musgrove family, their daughter, the Musgrove's daughter named Louisa, who is now being courted by Frederick since he has returned in the last 8 years. He was a sailor who has made his fortune during the Napoleonic Wars, has returned home, is courting Louisa. And Louisa has a nearly fatal flaw, almost dies. And this sort of opens up new realms of possibility in the novel. During Louisa's recovery, Frederick sees Anne's strength of will and compassion in how she helps Louisa convalesce, as well as Louisa's impetuousness, which is not something Frederick Wentworth wanted in a future wife. Because of Anne and Frederick's past, Wentworth puts on a stiff upper lip and remains proud and indifferent, while Anne can only watch from afar, knowing that she may have missed out not only on her first, but also her second chance at Wentworth's love. This part of the book, maybe the most psychologically astute part, captures not only the excitement of youthful love, and keep in mind, this is not exactly youthful for the time period. She is 26, 27 years old. Uh, you're going to be dead in 5 years of tuberculosis or something. You are already used up when you're 26. You better get to being married immediately. So, not as youthful as some of her other major characters, but it also opens up this possibility of bittersweet poignancy of a love possibly, maybe, hopefully regained. Meanwhile, Anne is being pursued by her cousin, William Elliot, who thinks he is a shoo-in for her hand simply because he's set to inherit Sir Walter Elliot's property. But Anne pretty soon discovers that William is motivated by little more than greed and vanity, much like her father. And this sets the stage for Frederick and Anne to reacquaint themselves with one another. But what can exactly become of a love that was once sacrificed to Anne's excessive caution? And before I began to read, I primed myself to look out for the various ways the theme persuasion works throughout the book. And it does work throughout the book. There is the obvious handiwork of someone like Lady Russell, who ruined Anne's chances the first time. Again, not maliciously, but she ended up breaking off the engagement. How does Anne balance deference to Lady Russell's authority, which was certainly important to her, without conceding Anne's own moral autonomy? As the 8 years pass between their first and second courtship, Anne becomes less susceptible to the onus of propriety and more comfortable with asserting her own will. The pretensions of Sir Walter and Elizabeth tug at those around them to value social prestige, another kind of persuasion. Wentworth's refusal to wear his love on his sleeve and to be standoffish and indifferent towards Anne, combined with his famous love letter to Anne near the end of the novel, exert their own kind of gravitational pull persuasion. And meanwhile, Austen shows how Anne's internal psychological state is often at odds with itself, simultaneously pushing her forward and pulling her back toward Wentworth. All forms of persuasion. Being Austen's last novel, published posthumously in 1817, it's no surprise the tone set by Persuasion is slower, maybe a little bit more elegiac than her earlier ones. And this oddly fits, as Anne is nearly 28 at the beginning of the novel, compared to the younger Emma Woodhouse and Elizabeth Bennet, who were 20 and 21, and Marianne Dashwood, who was 16. Compared to the earlier novels, Persuasion feels more measured, mature, emotionally sophisticated. We think about the late style of artists being dissonant and discordant, flying in the face of earlier conventions. Since Anne's story appears to be taken from Austen's own experience, down to Wentworth's resemblance of several men in Austen's life, Persuasion reads like Anne's very own late style love story. Or maybe even Jane Austen's own late style love story. It's Austen after the vim and vigor of youth have subsided and adult priorities have been discovered. It lacks the effervescence of Austen's earlier work, but in its place you get a profound meditation on regret, the possibility of second chances, and the quiet constancy of love. As someone who was trepidatious of finding Austen as stale and lifeless as I found her in high school, rediscovering her all over again has been deeply satisfying. It may have taken Anne and Frederick 8 years to find one another, but I have Northanger Abbey sitting on my bookshelf, and it's not going to take me 8 years to pick it up for a little bit of an Austenian change of pace. I think maybe something funny from her would be nice, and also just to see how she pillories and parodies Anne Radcliffe's The Mysteries of Udolpho, which is a hilarious novel. If you ever, not intentionally hilarious, it's hilarious by accident. But I'm looking forward to what she has to say in it. But some initial thoughts, impressions, ideas about a recent reading of Jane Austen's Persuasion. Absolutely fantastic. I can now see what everyone else sees. Now, granted, this is not one of her most famous novels, but not one of the more discussed, but still absolutely gorgeous. This is Persuasion by Jane Austen. I will see everyone in another video. Bye.